I am Amare Bantider, working at Water and Land Resource Center. And also, I have also a teaching position at Addis Ababa University. I have been working with several years with Gazao, Isabel, and I think Brigitte, she's around. So that I'm very, very happy to meet you. Now I'm going to share my slide. And yeah, just a moment. Yes, here we go. Have you seen my screen?
Yes, we can. All good.
Very good. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, wherever it applies. In this presentation, what I'm going to do, that I will briefly introduce the country. Perhaps many of you might have visited this country, but perhaps if some of you have not, then it will be a chance to briefly visit and I mean introduce the country. And then I will give a highlight on the land degradation. Yeah, in the outline, I'm going to introduce first the country and then briefly would give very brief introduction on the land degradation extent and distribution in the country, and then experiences on land rehabilitation, restoration, and conservation. And then, in fact, the major topic is on explaining and introducing our experiences on the learning watershed regarding the co-production of knowledge on sustainable land management. I hope my colleagues definitely would compliment, I guess. Yeah, to begin with, the country is located in the Horn of Africa. It is one of the largest countries in Africa, and it is 10th in terms of its area size. The country also enjoys quite enormous climatic regimes, ranging from hot tropical to highland climate system, because of a very big range in altitude that ranges from 116 meters below sea level to 4,533 meters above sea level at Ras Dajjal. And therefore, due to this, there is diverse agroecology, and we have several transboundary rivers, and the country is quite rich in terms of the biodiversity. With regard to some pointers on socioeconomic and cultural conditions, the country is one of highly populated country in Africa. According to the official estimate for 2020-21, it is 101.9 million. And then, of course, some other estimates gave us 117 million people. Among this total population, 77% of them are living in rural areas, and it has a big implication on the issues that we're going to talk later. And the population is growing at 2.1%, and the population is quite young. Culturally, Ethiopia, as you know, is the cradle of humankind, where the oldest human-like hominid, Lucy, is found, and it is 3.5 million years old. And the country has also long history of statehood, and the country has very diverse languages and mosaics of cultures and several religions. The one that you show is a castle of the 17th century at Gondar, where at one time it was a capital city of the country before it moved to Addis Ababa. Culturally, we have mosaics of culture, as I have already said, religiously, as well as the different kinds of cultures are obtained in the country based on the different language groups all over the country. Ethiopia is essentially an agricultural country where the largest amount of economic activity depends on agriculture. In 2020-21, agriculture accounted 32.5% of the total GDP, and therefore it is a very important sector for the country. And basically the agriculture in the country is dominated by smallholder farmers and subsistence farming system. And of course, these days there is an introduction of commercial farming as well, that we are going to see some slides on this. The country, the agriculture has challenged in many ways. One is there is a severe climate change, land degradation, technology, population growth, and land return system and marketing could be cited as major challenges of agricultural development in the country. These photographs that I picked from the aeroplane showed that how the smallholder farming looks like, very much small in size, fragmented, and you can find all over, be it in the highland, the lowland, and then the land. The lowland, particularly, the lowland part of the country is particularly pastoralist, but the highlands are based on rain-fed agriculture. You can find different systems. This is one of the traditional agroforestry systems that's found in the south, where it is very much rich in terms of biodiversity as well as for its biomass, and many kinds of lives are depending on it. And these areas are very well known for coffee production and other perennial crops. Perhaps those who don't know what coffee beans looks like is the one that you saw besides the boy picking coffee. This is some example of commercial farms, and recently there is also an introduction of expanding horticultural agriculture that is found in the central part of the country and basically for export. So with this very brief introduction of the context in the country, now let us talk a little bit about the land degradation issue in Ethiopia. The first one is on, but I missed one picture here. Anyway, the land cover dynamics is becoming very much high. There are deforestations, a lot of conversion of lands to agriculture, and the like. And currently, about 20% of the country is on the cultivated land, and some 8% is forest land. And there is a huge dynamics along the previous decades. This is one of the pictures that shows how land degradation is very severe, particularly in the highlands where there is steep slope. In some areas, there is a cultivation without taking care of the land, particularly without having important technology to protect soil erosion. One example here is, for example, this is a Blue Nile Fall, where it is heavily laden with sediment, and it is basically a sign of heavy soil erosion by water. Are you following me? Am I heard?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, very good. Because the light has gone, so that's why I'm trying to check it. This one is a map that shows where the land degradation prevails, particularly soil erosion. We made a national assessment on the severity of erosion in the country. On the left side is the situation in 2016, and the brownish color indicates where the soil erosion is very severe, and sometimes above 70 tons per hectare per year. In general, in 2016, the national average rate of sediment yield is estimated at 11.2 tons per hectare per year. If this, the remaining untreated cultivated area treated by soil and water conservation, it is possible to reduce the sediment yield by half and could reach at 6.3 tons per hectare per year. It is possible to talk a lot about the issue of land degradation. Land degradation is basically very heavily observed in the highland areas where the rainfed agriculture is undertaking, and the largest population is also concentrated in this highland, and therefore land degradation is very severe in different parts of the highlands. Now, very briefly again, to talk about the attempts of land rehabilitation, restoration, and conservation activities efforts in this country. As it is known, the traditional land management activities as well as proper land management activities. However, institutionalized large-scale land rehabilitation, restoration, and conservation in Ethiopia began in mid-1970s as a response to the deadly famine and drought that was happening in the mid of 1970s during the Sahelian drought. And at that time, the government was very much in line with trying to address the land degradation issue, because one of the reasons why famine was believed to be due to land degradation. In those decades, rehabilitation workers were actually concentrating on physical soil and water conservation measures, area closure in hillsides, and afforestation in areas that were very much deforested. Today, as a general approach, the country is following a watershed approach for land rehabilitation and land management. And perhaps to be all of us on the same page, I have selected what do we mean watershed in this country and what watershed management or development constitute about. Yeah, for some of you, this could be very much trivial, but I think it is good to be on the same line. The watershed is defined as an area, surface area, from which runoff resulting from rainfall is collected and drained through a common confluence point. Depending upon the disciplines and depending upon the needs, the watershed could be a hydrological response unit, particularly when it is considering a hydrological study. It could be a planning unit, particularly for watershed managers and developers. It could be a biophysical unit, particularly for those who are working on ecosystem research. With this general background, in this country, we define watershed management as the process of organizing and guiding land, water, and other natural resources used in a watershed to provide the appropriate goods and services while mitigating the impact on the watershed resources. In this line, just to highlight, the watershed management in this country has two overarching objectives to fulfill. The first one is, as we already looked at some of the pictures, land degradation is very severe, and therefore soil fertility is declining, and as a result, agricultural production is going down. And there are several other ecosystem services are also dwindling, and therefore, in order to, by curbing this land degradation, the watershed management has to improve productivity and has to sustain ecosystem services. Therefore, one of the major goal of watershed management is to enhance the watershed, the ecosystem services that's gained from the watershed management. The second overarching objective is to sustain the ecosystem functions. It is through the ecosystem functions that is possible to sustain the ecosystem services. Therefore, with these major goals, the country is going on to implement watershed development. Particularly these days, integrated watershed management is a motto for it. Watershed could have a very different size, from micro to major watershed. The ones that we are going to talk later, the land watersheds, are placed under the micro watershed here, where they are a community-based watershed, particularly having an area of up to 10,000 hectares. When several micro watersheds are treated under larger watershed, then it constitutes to be a sub-watershed, and then could go up to major watershed and basin. With this general understanding, what attempts have been worked out in this country? Just since the 1970s, a lot of energy and investment was carried out in order to rehabilitate the degraded landscapes, and even to some extent to restore some of them, while to improve the livelihood of the residents. Just one aspect of the watershed development in this regard is the physical soil and water conservation. As a proxy to look into the amount of activities that is being conducted in this country, in general, in Ethiopian highlands, the area that is requiring terracing of physical soil and water conservation is estimated at 34 million hectares. And until 2016, what we achieved is 7.7 million hectares of land, which is 23% of the total area that is requiring physical soil and water conservation. The upper map shows the blue color indicates the area where are fully treated by physical soil and water conservation. In the lower figure, the reddish color indicates the area where it is requiring different kinds of physical soil and water conservation activities, and therefore we have a lot to do in the coming several years and decades. These are some of the examples that the areas that are very much treated with enhanced soil and water conservation activities. The first figure is the Conso bench terraces. There is actually very old terraces that have been constructed some 400 years ago and still maintained by the community and continue to be productive. The lower one is Gedio agroforestry, the one that you also looked at, and the Anjane in 2012 we made this picture, and this is one of the observatory stations where soil and water conservation trial was conducted, and the lower one is people at work on quite millions of human labor are invested on such kinds of soil and watershed activities for the last several decades. Now, what we did in the learning watersheds. First, I'm going to look briefly the soil and water conservation or sustainable land management research activities in Ethiopia. And then we are going to look into the experiences of the learning watersheds, looking into its philosophy, the process of co-production and co-learning, the major actors and some achievements, and how to ensure these long-term engagements. To talk a little bit about the evolution of land management research in the country, as as I have already indicated, land management activities also in some pocket areas have very long edge. However, the institutionalized land management began since the 1970s, and basically scientific, well-organized research on soil and water conservation and land management started in the 1980s by the establishment of, this was a project that was initiated and co-run by Bern University, Switzerland, and the Ministry of Agriculture of this country. In the 1980s, the major focus was actually to understand what kind of land degradation is going on, quantifying the magnitude of soil erosion, runoff, the capability analysis, and the like. In the 1990s, by broadening the experiences that we got in 1980s, research were diversified, and therefore diversification of knowledge systems were started, like including the biological soil and water conservation research, participatory soil and conservation research, addressing the indigenous knowledge, trying to integrate into the formalized science knowledge and the like. It is in this period where co-learning and co-production of knowledge started. In the 2000s, still this research continued, where consolidation and co-production of knowledge was widened through different means by bringing the multi-level, multi-stakeholders approaches, and quite a number of guidelines for participatory approaches were developed. And in the 2010s, transformation of knowledge about SLM, and therefore quite a number of learning watersheds developed by Water and Land Source Center of this university in collaboration with Bern University, and also upscaling of soil and water conservation activities, particularly by trying to address the integrated watershed development was started. This slide shows the different watersheds where we had the hydrosedimentology observations and creating the system knowledge. I will not go in detail. As I already said, this was begun in the 1980s, and therefore the major purpose of these observatories are monitoring the hydrosedimentology in general. And to date, these stations have produced quite a large number of data sets that can everyone use. The learning watersheds, where we are implementing co-production and co-learning, is established in 2011, and still they are with us, continue to learn and continue to produce knowledge. Why? Just why these learning watersheds are established? We have a few justifications. The previous watershed management.
Amare, you have 5 minutes left. 5 minutes.
Okay. Hope you will add me some 5 minutes. Why we established this watersheds are basically looking into the previous watershed management. They were following top-down approach, and in that case, experts and bureaucracy no more. The focus was on soil and water conservation, and therefore there was a lack to integrate the livelihood improvement. There was weak follow-up, less participation with the different stakeholders, and therefore, in order to avert this thing and to co-develop knowledge at the same time, to bring a learning watershed that multiple stakeholders can learn, were established. And these are the major goals of the establishment of the watersheds. The philosophy that these learning watersheds follow include active participation and collaboration of multiple stakeholders, including land users, local community organizations, extensionists, researchers, and policymakers at all stages of integrated watershed management to achieve sustained ecosystem functions, at the same time to achieve ecosystem services. Therefore, the two goals are taken care, and therefore multiple stakeholders participate through development as well as through co-learning. Learning watershed principles are therefore co-learning and co-production of knowledge, and follow adaptive planning and engagement of stakeholders in management. These learning watersheds are serving even to date as live learning platforms at all levels: farmers, researchers, policymakers, students, and so on. The entire concept is depicted in this picture. We have interventions at the institutional level, technical level, knowledge generation, and capacity development. All these are leading to bring a sustainable development that tries to fulfill the production function, the conservation function, the institutional function, and the societal functions that eventually to lead into sustainable development. The process of co-production of knowledge, perhaps if we take the definition given by one of the scholars, is a process that iteratively unites ways of knowing and acting, including ideas, norms, practices, and discourses, leading to mutual reinforcement and reciprocal transformation of societal outcomes. Using this major definition, our co-learning and co-production of knowledge follows this approach. In the watershed development and watershed management, we have three major phases, and of course there are quite several others. That started with initiation phase, rehabilitation phase, and economic development phase. And during that, in each of the phases, there is an active participation of multiple stakeholders. At initiation phase, where we have participatory appraisal of problems, like conducting a baseline, appraisal of priorities, participatory watershed development plans preparation, and all are at the initiation phase. And then during the rehabilitation phase, as well as economic development phase, we have quite a number of activities that are both participatory and of course at time needed, the experts also intervene. And basically during the co-production, we have a group called FREG, Farmers, Researchers, Expert Group, where farmers, researchers, and expert groups are coming together when at different times when necessary, are dealing with all the different phases of watershed development. And in addition, farmers, researchers, policymakers, annual experience sharing, field visits through during this time, all the time, call up the strongest side of the learning watersheds. The major actors in the community watershed management are starters from the farmers, those are the watershed residents who are members of the Watershed Users Association. In the hierarchy, there is an association committee, there are the Warada watershed team, and these are the different administrative tiers in the country, the Kabale, Warada, zonal, and regional government. And these are the different tiers. This is the smallest one, Kabale is the smallest one, followed by Warada and zonal and so on. All the administrators and the technical groups all are participating in the watershed development activities. Agricultural Research Institute and universities also are engaged in the, and local self-help and religious institutions are also participating. Just to mention a quick example, in the community watershed team, there are quite several members, the community leader, 4 female-headed householders, 4 male households, 1 youth, 1 religious leader, and the like. The Warada watershed team also organizes comes from different sectors in order to ensure cooperation and collaboration. It is through this approach that group learning, co-production of knowledge is continuing. These are the field visits, annual field visits, and co-learning are even on the side. In the workshop, in the field, you have quite a number of experience sharing, on-the-job training, and training at higher levels. Through all this, a lot of co-production of knowledge and co-learning has achieved. Some of the achievements in those learning watersheds. As I said, we have there are two major objectives of watershed development. The first one is to sustain the ecosystem functions, and through that, in those watersheds, we came up with huge improvement in vegetation cover and plant biodiversity, carbon storage in the watershed enhanced, soil erosion reduced, peak runoff reduced, base flow of streams improved, and groundwater recharge is enhanced. On the livelihood front, biomass production like animal feed, fodder, timber, crop productivity improved due to reduced soil erosion and improvement of soil fertility, improvement in the household income, and even above all, nutrition of the household is started to enhance because of the introduction of a lot of vegetables and the like. This is one of the watersheds, the learning watershed, were completely changed, very much rehabilitated and become productive. And still, this watershed is continuing to serve as a learning as well as enhancing their livelihoods. Different photographs showing the improved shallow groundwater, the improvement of feed, and in particular, in all the watershed activities, as much as possible, all land has to be productive, and therefore, even in the terraces, quite a lot of production is going on through the cash band approach. How to assure a long-term engagement? There is a sustainability guideline that is produced by the center that helps us to monitor the status of the watershed development and also trying to focus on productivity and conservation and institutional empowerment. And there is also an activity that is going on to empower local institutions. Apart from the formal institutions where we have Kabale, Warada, and so on, the community institutions like EDDER, that is a kind of a self-help institution, a kind of grassroots life insurance. These are a community local institutions that is coming on board when the government follow-up is a bit reduced, and therefore very currently the WLRC are engaging these elders in order to empower them, to incentivize them, to spearhead the watershed development activities of their own without waiting for the government assistance. Establishing water users as cooperatives rather than association to have a legal status is an aspect where currently the government came up, enacted a law, therefore enforcing the watershed users could improve a long-term engagement of watershed development. With regard to the communication processes, this is my last slide, communication process of co-production. There are multiple means of communications so far that we applied, repeated participatory monitoring of activities, conducting annual farmers' day, experience sharing from different parts of the country, documentation of learnings, preparing the policy brief, conducting workshops, preparing occasional documentary video so that broadcasting through televisions, and publication of different sources like even in peer-reviewed journals, manuals, and the like. All this is an issue of communication processes that we are following on the knowledge that is co-produced. Thank you very much. Sorry, I took a bit of time. If you have questions and comments, you are welcome. My colleague Isabel Gizau, I hope you can complement on the issues that I didn't touch. Thank you so much.